Germany, Bavaria, 1922. On a lonely farmstead called Hinterkaifeck, 6 people were slaughtered. The family, the children, the maid, all killed with a mattock. Outside in the snow, investigators saw something chilling. Footprints leading from the forest, straight to the farmhouse, but no footprints led back. The killer, or killers, stayed behind. If you're drawn to unsolved mysteries, hit that follow button now, because you're about to step into one of Germany's most chilling crimes, the Hinterkaifeck murders. On a secluded patch of land in Bavaria, Germany, stood a solitary farmstead known only as Hinterkaifeck. On the night between March 31st and April 1st, 1922, 6 souls were butchered, mercilessly, brutally, inexplicably, with a farm mattock. Among them were a family and their new maid. And in the snow, footprints leading to the farm, but none leading away. I'm Walter Graves, a journalist investigator, and this is Black Box Investigation. Chapter 1. Hinterkaifeck's Isolation. Hinterkaifeck was no village. It was one farm, alone in the woods. The name meant behind Kaifeck because that's exactly what it was. Hidden, isolated, tucked away half a mile from the nearest road. The farm sat 70 kilometers north of Munich, between Ingolstadt and Schrobenhausen. Built around 1863, it was the sort of place you wouldn't stumble upon unless you were looking for it. Neighbors lived far enough away that screams might be swallowed by the wind. In winter, snow blanketed the fields in silence. Travelers described it as eerie, a place where the forest pressed close, where shadows fell early. To outsiders, it was just another farm. But to investigators, and to anyone who studies true crime today, Hinterkaifeck has become one of Germany's most baffling, most chilling, unsolved murders. Chapter 2. The Gruber-Gabriel family. At the heart of the farm was the Gruber family. Andreas Gruber, age 64, the patriarch. Harsh, controlling, feared. Neighbors whispered of his cruelty. Some said he beat his wife. Others said worse, that he abused his own daughter. Cecilia Gruber, 72, his wife. Quiet, withdrawn. She kept to herself, rarely speaking out. Their daughter, Victoria Gabriel, 35. A widow, a mother of 2, a woman marked by tragedy. She sang in the church choir, but her life was poisoned by whispers. The rumors of incest between her and Andreas weren't just rumors. They had been arrested in 1915, convicted, imprisoned. Andreas served a year. Victoria, a month. Victoria's children, Cecilia, only 7 years old, bright and spirited, and Josef, a toddler of 2. His paternity was a mystery. Some said Josef's father was Victoria's neighbor, Lorenz Schlittenbauer. Others whispered something darker, that Josef's real father was Andreas himself. And finally, the maid, Maria Baumgartner, around 45 years old. She arrived at the farm on March 31st, 1922. That very night, she would die. But this wasn't the family's first maid. The previous one had quit suddenly. She told people she couldn't stand it anymore, the noises in the attic, the footsteps at night, the sense of being watched. She said the farm was haunted, and she refused to stay. Chapter 3. Chilling Premonitions. In the days before the murders, strange things began to happen. Andreas found a Munich newspaper lying on the property. No one in the area subscribed to that paper. How did it get there? Snow revealed footprints leading from the forest directly to the farmhouse, but there were no footprints returning to the trees. A key disappeared. A lock on an outbuilding was found broken. Nothing had been stolen, but someone had been there. At night, they heard footsteps in the attic. Shadows moved when no one should have been awake. Andreas told neighbors, "Someone is in my house." But Andreas was disliked. People saw him as paranoid, violent. No one believed him. But Andreas was right. Chapter 4. The Night of the Murders, March 31st, 1922. It began like any other day. The family worked in the fields. Victoria sang to the children. The new maid, Maria, arrived in the afternoon. By nightfall, Hinterkaifeck was swallowed in darkness. Snow lay on the ground. The forest pressed close. Then it began. In the barn, someone waited. Perhaps they lured the family one by one. Perhaps they ambushed them. We'll never know. First Andreas, then Cecilia, his wife, then Victoria, then little Cecilia, the 7-year-old girl. Each struck with a mattock, a heavy farm tool like a pickaxe. Their skulls were shattered, bones crushed. The killer stacked their bodies, covered them with hay, as though tidying up, as though ashamed. The girl did not die instantly. Medical reports suggest she survived for nearly 2 hours, her jaw shattered, pulling her own hair out in terror before death. Inside the house, Maria was killed in her bed, and Joseph, just 2 years old, was murdered in his cradle. 6 lives, snuffed out. And then, silence. Chapter 5. Days in the Aftermath. But the story doesn't end with the killings, because for the next several days, someone stayed at Hinterkaifeck. The cows were milked, the animals fed, fresh bread baked in the kitchen, smoke rose from the chimney. The killer, or killers, lived in the house, alongside the corpses. Neighbors saw the chimney smoke. They assumed life went on as usual. But the Grubers were already dead. And when investigators later entered, they found something chilling. The calendar in the house had been advanced. A page for April 1st had been torn away. The murderer had marked the passing of time. Chapter 6. Discovery and Chaos. By April 4th, neighbors grew uneasy. No one had seen the Grubers in days. The children hadn't come to school. Victoria missed choir practice. Mail piled up. So a group of locals went to the farm. They entered the barn, and under piles of hay they found them. Andreas, his wife Victoria, and little Cecilia. Inside, they found Maria and Joseph. The sight was brutal. Heads smashed. Blood soaked into the straw. But worse still, the crime scene was ruined almost immediately. Neighbors swarmed the property, some out of fear, some out of curiosity. They touched the bodies, they moved items, they trampled evidence. Police arrived, but it was already too late. No fingerprints were taken, no photographs of the original scene. The bodies were decapitated for autopsy, their heads sent to Munich. Those heads vanished during World War II. The most crucial evidence, gone forever. And the murder weapon, the mattock, was only discovered a year later, hidden in the attic. This was no ordinary crime, and no ordinary investigation. Chapter 7. Theories. Who killed the Gruber family? Over the years, investigators named more than 100 suspects, but a few theories stand out. Theory 1. Lorenz Schlittenbauer, the neighbor, Victoria's rumored lover, possibly Joseph's father. Lorenz was one of the first to enter the house. He moved bodies, claimed he wanted to check on Joseph. Witnesses said he acted strangely, too calm. At one point, he unlocked the house with a key that no one else knew existed. How did he get it? Some believe Lorenz murdered the family in a fit of jealousy, or to silence the scandal of Joseph's true paternity. He was questioned but never charged. Theory 2. Carl Gabriel, Victoria's husband, reported killed in World War I. But what if he survived? What if he returned, only to discover the rumors about his wife and her father were true? Some POWs claimed they met a German officer who confessed to slaughtering his family at Hinterkaifeck, but the stories were inconsistent, unreliable. Theory 3. The Bickler brothers and Georg Siegel, named by the previous maid, who recalled hearing them talk about how the whole family should be dead. She said the farm dog never barked at them, suggesting familiarity. But no evidence ever stuck. Theory 4. Strangers, the footprints, the attic noises, the missing keys. Was someone living secretly inside the house, waiting, watching, until finally they struck? Theory 5. The supernatural. The maid who fled said the farm was haunted. Footsteps, shadows, doors unlocking on their own. Even today, some whisper that the murders weren't human at all. If the mystery of Hinterkaifeck sends a chill down your spine, subscribe now, because we're about to dive into the suspects that keep this case alive a century later. But in the end, every suspect was questioned and every theory collapsed under lack of evidence. Chapter 8. Aftermath and Legacy. The case dragged on for years, but it never led to a conviction. In 1923, the farm was demolished. Locals refused to live there. Too much blood, too many whispers. A memorial shrine stood on the site for decades. In 2025, a new monument was erected, proof that even a century later the murders still haunt Germany. The victims were buried in Weidhofen. Tens of thousands attended their funeral. But their skulls, crucial evidence, were lost forever in the chaos of war. The case was formally closed in 1955. Reopened briefly after World War II, looked at again in 2007. Each time, investigators concluded the same: we will probably never know. The murders inspired books, films, theories on internet forums. The most famous, Andrea Maria Schenkel's 2006 novel Tannöd, a fictionalized account of an isolated Bavarian farm and a family slaughtered inside. Hinterkaifeck is more than a crime scene, it's a legend. Chapter 9. Why we can't let this go. So why does this case endure? Because the contradictions gnaw at us. Why were there no footprints leading away? Why did someone stay to feed the animals? Why did the killer bake bread, light fires, and live in a house filled with corpses? This wasn't theft. Nothing was stolen. This wasn't rage. The bodies were carefully arranged. This wasn't random. The killer knew them, or knew enough to move unseen. That's what makes Hinterkaifeck so terrifying. Because when you strip it down, it's not just a story of 6 lives lost. It's the story of a killer who may have been inside the house before the murders, who may have been watching the family for days, who may have hidden in the attic listening to their footsteps, waiting. And when the time came, they stepped out of the shadows and ended everything. 6 lives, 1 farm, a murderer who vanished without a trace, or perhaps never left. A century later, Hinterkaifeck remains one of the most disturbing cold cases in history. Some crimes fade with time. This one only grows darker. I'm Walter Graves. This was Black Box Investigation. If you've been gripped by this cold case tale, like the video, subscribe, and dive deeper with Black Box Investigation, because some mysteries never fade.